Some secrets protect you better than any lock ever could. I learned that truth when I watched my granddaughter zip up her wedding dress in my small bedroom. The morning sun came through the window, making everything look golden and safe. Maya stood there looking like an angel, smiling at herself in the mirror. She had no idea that the family she was about to marry into had already made plans for money she never told them about. I was standing behind her, holding the flower crown we bought together last month. My heart felt heavy, like a stone had settled inside my chest. The room smelled like the perfume Maya's mother used to wear before she passed away 10 years ago. I raised Maya by myself since she was 8 years old. No family helped us. No rich relatives sent money. Just me working 2 jobs and making sure Maya grew up safe and smart. That's why when my gut tells me something is wrong, I don't ignore it. I've made enough mistakes in my life to know when danger is dressed up like kindness. Maya caught my eyes in the mirror and asked if I was crying. I told her no, just dust in my eyes. Her phone kept buzzing on the bed. Messages from Patricia Monroe, her soon-to-be mother-in-law. Smiley faces and hearts everywhere. Patricia had been nothing but sweet since the day we met her. She brought us homemade cookies. She called Maya daughter before the wedding even happened. She wore soft sweaters and always smelled like vanilla. Everyone at church loved her. The wedding planner said Patricia was the nicest mother-in-law she'd ever worked with. Even the flower shop lady said Patricia must be a blessing from heaven. But something about her made my skin crawl in a way I couldn't explain with words. The first time Patricia hugged Maya, she held on too long. Her eyes swept over our small apartment like she was counting what we owned. Her husband Robert stood behind her, nodding at everything she said like a puppet. Their son Marcus kissed Maya's hand and thanked me for raising such a wonderful girl. Their younger son Derek played with his phone and barely looked up. They all seemed so normal, so polite, so clean. That's exactly what scared me, because monsters don't look like monsters anymore. They look like people bringing you dinner. I kept pinning Maya's dress while watching her lean toward her phone every time Patricia's name appeared. 2 days before a wedding, a girl will forgive anything to keep the happy day safe. She'll ignore red flags. She'll quiet her own worries. She'll smile when her stomach tells her to run. I wasn't going to let Maya walk into a trap just because it was wrapped in white lace and pretty words. So I stopped pinning and I spoke. My voice came out quiet but firm, like when you warn someone that the stove is hot. Maya, I said, never tell Patricia about your money. The air in the room changed instantly. Not loud, but it changed. Maya's body went stiff, like someone had pressed pause on her. Her smile stayed on her face, but it got weaker around the edges. Grandma, she whispered, and I could hear the begging in her voice. Please don't ruin this now. I moved closer so my words wouldn't have to travel far. Not Marcus, not his mother, not his father, not anyone in that family. You keep it quiet the way you kept quiet when the other kids teased you in middle school. You keep it quiet the way you kept quiet when I got sick and you were scared I might die. If you're watching this right now, tell me where you're watching from in the comments. Because grandmothers who raise children without help understand what it costs to speak up when everyone wants you to stay quiet and grateful. Maya reached for my hand and her fingers felt cold like ice. But Patricia has been so kind to me, she said carefully, like she was scared of what I might say next. She just likes everything neat and organized. Organized. That word hit me like a slap, because organized people like paperwork. Organized people like control. I kept my face calm because fear spreads fast when the older person shows panic. Kind people can still be dangerous, I told her. Some people don't steal with guns. They steal with smiles and contracts. Maya studied my face in the mirror, looking for proof that I was just being paranoid. Her phone buzzed again. Patricia's name lit up the screen again. Maya stared at it but didn't pick it up. I covered her hand on top of the dresser and felt her heartbeat jumping under her skin. Her voice dropped to almost nothing. Grandma, she whispered. Why are you saying this? The first time I learned that paper can hurt you worse than fists, nobody yelled at me. There was no screaming or broken dishes or slammed doors. Just quiet voices in a living room that smelled like coffee and flowers. A woman with a kind smile slid a folder toward me like she was offering me help. Sadness makes you slow. Sadness makes you trust people you shouldn't trust. That's why it's the perfect time for certain people to make deals. It happened right after someone in my family died. Fresh enough that the air still felt thick and hard to breathe. Fresh enough that everyone kept saying, "Let me know if you need anything." Like words alone could fix a broken heart. I was the one holding everything together because I've always been the one who stands when others fall. I didn't have money for a lawyer. I didn't even have energy for arguments. I had bills piling up on my kitchen table and a heart that kept forgetting how to beat right. They showed up in the morning in a shiny car, dressed like they were going somewhere important. Patricia Monroe was there, younger back then but already polished like a fancy stone. Robert was next to her, quiet as always. Derek carried a box like he came to help me move. Marcus stood in the back with his hands in his pockets, eyes on the ground like he didn't want anyone to see him wanting things. Patricia hugged me like we were sisters and said, "We're so sorry for your loss. We'll handle the hard parts for you." She said it like a prayer. She didn't ask if she could sit down. She just sat like comfort gave her the right to be anywhere. Then she put the folder on my table with both hands, slow and careful. "This is normal," she said. "Protects you. It protects the family. Keeps everything organized." Organized. That word again. She talked in calm, simple sentences about papers that would help me manage things. Help me avoid confusion. Help me make sure nobody takes advantage of me. She acted like she was saving me from wolves. I remember wanting so badly to believe her. I remember nodding like a child being taught how to be good. She pointed to lines with her perfect fingernail and said, "You don't even have to read all of it. Just normal stuff. We'll help you understand." The way she said normal stuff made my stomach hurt, but sadness is weird. Sadness makes you doubt yourself because everything already feels wrong inside. I signed one page. I wrote my initials on another. I did it because she kept saying, "This will give you peace." I did it because Robert kept nodding slow and steady like a man who knows what's right. I did it because Derek's eyes were on my hands, not my face. I did it because Marcus offered me water like I was about to faint. Then the air changed just a tiny bit when Patricia pulled the folder back and tucked it into her purse. Her smile didn't move, but the warmth behind it disappeared. "Good," she said quietly, and that word had weight. "Now we can move forward." Weeks later, when I could finally think clearly again, I took the papers to a woman who knows about legal documents and money. Her name was Susan Cole. She read the pages without blinking. Her mouth got tight as she turned to the last page. She didn't make me feel stupid, which told me it was really bad. She said, "This would have taken control away from you." She said it plain. She said it like a doctor reading test results. She showed me the part where I'd agreed to let them manage things temporarily, but there was no end date written down. She showed me the words that sounded protective but weren't normal at all. Protective. Organized. Normal. That day I learned something I'll never forget. People don't always steal by breaking into your house. Sometimes they steal by making you feel rude for asking questions. I spent months trying to undo what I signed. I spent nights staring at my ceiling, thinking about how close I came to losing everything I worked for. I didn't forget Patricia's words. I didn't forget the way she smiled while my pen was moving. I didn't forget how safe she tried to make me feel. That memory is why 2 days before Maya's wedding, when I heard Patricia laugh softly during the dinner rehearsal and tell the wedding coordinator, "Don't worry, we like to keep everything organized in our family," my chest went cold and my hands stopped moving. I didn't raise Maya in luxury. I raised her to be careful, to stretch a dollar, to keep receipts, to talk softly around people who smile too big. The kind of life that teaches a child to be thankful without being foolish. So when people hear $200 million, they imagine champagne bottles and mansions and a girl who grew up spoiled. That wasn't us. That number lived behind closed doors. It lived inside locked files. It lived wrapped in silence so tight you'd think it was sewn shut. The money didn't fall from the sky, and it didn't come from winning the lottery. Came from land. Land that belonged to our family for so long that people forgot it existed. Before Maya was even born, there was property tied to our family name. Boring-looking property that people would drive past without slowing down. The kind of land people call worthless until someone in a suit starts asking questions. Over the years, companies started circling that land with polite letters and quiet offers. They weren't offering because they liked us. They were offering because they found something valuable underground. Rights to dig for oil and gas. Leases that could pay money for decades. The kind of value that doesn't shout but grows like a tree. There were payments every month, new contracts, money from the companies that kept rising when prices went up. Nobody threw a party about it. The first time I saw a number big enough to make my legs shake, I didn't scream. I locked the paper in a drawer and sat in the dark until I could breathe normally again. Money that comes quietly is the kind that gets taken quietly too. That's why it was hidden the way it was. There was a special account set up to hold the money and protect the person it belonged to. It grew slowly at first, then suddenly it was taller than anything we'd ever imagined. It wasn't sitting in one place with lights flashing around it. It was layered and protected and treated like something precious, not a toy. The people around us didn't know because there was no reason for them to know. Maya went to school like everyone else. She had a job. She wore simple dresses to church. She learned to say no thank you without being rude. She learned to keep her happiness private. That account taught her discipline without her even knowing it. I let her live a normal life because normal keeps you safe. When people think you're ordinary, they don't watch you. They don't count your steps. They don't measure your quiet. That kind of invisible keeps a woman protected. Susan Cole told me years ago in that calm professional voice she uses when danger is coming, that silence isn't just personal. Silence can be legal. Silence can be smart. Silence can be the difference between keeping control and giving it away with a smile. She didn't use big fancy words. She didn't talk down to me. She just said, if anyone outside this account tries to connect themselves to this money, it gets messy fast. She said the mess doesn't start with robbery. It starts with access. It starts with people believing they have rights to things they didn't build. I watched Maya. I watched how love makes a young woman soft. How a wedding makes people think everything will be clean and blessed and safe. I watched how Patricia wrapped herself around Maya like a scarf. How that scarf got tighter when nobody was looking. And I knew deep in my bones that the most dangerous part wasn't the money itself. It was how marriage changes what people think they can ask for. Marriage makes some people act like a door just opened, even when it didn't. It makes them think your private business is now family business. It makes them think they can walk into rooms they never earned the right to enter. Maya sat on my couch that evening after the dinner rehearsal was over. Her hair was still pinned up. Her face looked tired in that quiet way brides get when too many people have touched them all day. She leaned forward with her hands pressed together and said, "So the money is real. You weren't just warning me because you don't like her." I looked into her eyes and kept my voice steady because truth needs to be calm to be heard. "It's real," I said. "And it's hidden for a reason." Her lips opened a little like she wanted to say something but didn't know which words were safe. I didn't give her time to make excuses or pretend it was love. I said it clear with all the weight it deserved. "Baby, marriage changes everything. Marriage doesn't just change a woman's last name. It changes how people look at her bank account. It changes what they feel brave enough to ask. It changes what they think they deserve to touch." I watched Maya sit there on my couch with her hands folded like she was trying to keep herself from shaking. Outside, rain tapped on the window soft and steady like a warning. Inside, the air felt tight like the room was holding its breath. Maya wasn't scared of the wedding. She was scared of letting people down. I've seen that kind of fear eat young women alive. It makes them sign things they don't understand. It makes them smile when they should walk away. It makes them think peace means giving up. I leaned closer and dropped my voice. Not because I was scared someone would hear, but because real truth lands better when it's not shouted. "There's a window," I told her. "A window right after the vows. When people start acting like what's yours belongs to everybody." Maya's eyes got narrow like she was trying to understand what I meant. I could see her brain wanting a simple answer. Do this, don't do that, and everything stays okay. But life doesn't work that way. People don't come for money wearing masks. They come with casseroles. They come with hugs. They come with words like family and normal and protection, and we just want what's best. They use love like a key, and marriage makes that key look real. It's not that the law suddenly becomes your enemy when you get married. It's that people start using marriage as a reason to rush you. They talk like time is running out. They act like paperwork is urgent. They make a signature seem harmless. They make you feel childish for waiting. They make you feel rude for asking for time to think. That's how the mistake happens. Not in a courtroom. In a living room with someone smiling softly while they slide a pen toward you. Maya shifted on the couch, pressing her fingers together. Marcus would never do that, she said. But the words didn't sound strong. They sounded careful, like she was trying to believe herself more than convince me. I didn't argue. I didn't insult her husband. I let her keep whatever softness she needed to survive the next 2 days. I kept my focus on the real danger. I'm not telling you he's evil, I said. I'm telling you his mother knows how to move when people are distracted. Maya's jaw got tight. She looked down at her ring, turning it once like she was checking if it still fit right. I haven't told her anything, she whispered. Not about the account, not about the land, nothing. Good, I said, and the relief in my chest felt like a small victory. Keep it that way. Silence isn't just staying quiet. Silence is power. Silence is choice. Silence is a locked door. When you speak too early, you don't just give information. You give people time to plan. You give them time to ask lawyers questions. You give them time to build an approach that looks respectful while it traps you. That's why I warned her before the wedding and not after. After is too late. After you're already defending yourself. Maya swallowed hard. I saw the bride in her trying to wake up. The part that wanted to be nice. The part that wanted peace no matter what. Patricia keeps calling me our girl, she said quietly, almost embarrassed. She says it like she's proud. I nodded once. That's not pride, I said. That's practice. I could feel Maya getting upset, then calming down, then getting upset again. Watching her fight with herself broke my heart in a quiet way, because I know that moment when love and instinct pull you in different directions. It's the moment a woman either learns to protect herself or learns to ignore warning signs until they become scars. I reached over and covered her hand, not squeezing, just holding it there. You don't have to fight anyone, I told her. You don't have to accuse. You don't have to ruin your wedding with worry. Her eyes lifted to mine, wet and scared but steady. Then what do I do, she whispered. I held her gaze until she stopped looking for comfort and started looking for direction. You do nothing, I said. You stay quiet. You let them show you who they really are. Maya's breathing caught a little, and in that catch I heard her starting to understand. I leaned closer the way I used to when she was small and the world was too loud. And listen carefully, I said, slow and clear, like planting seeds she couldn't forget. If anyone comes with papers after the wedding, you call me first. I didn't understand Patricia Monroe's reason the way people understand bad guys in movies. One big speech. One ugly moment. One time when the mask falls off and everyone gasps. Patricia didn't move like that. Patricia moved like a woman who thinks she's doing the right thing. She hid greed inside words that sounded like values. She wrapped control in manners so tight you'd mistake it for love. That's why people admired her. That's why women at church whispered, that family has class. Like class means kindness. I watched her long enough to learn she wasn't chasing money like a thief. She was collecting it like it was hers by right. The rehearsal dinner happened in a private room with soft lights and napkins folded like birds. Maya sat next to Marcus, wearing the smile a bride learns when she's been hugged too many times in one night. Patricia sat across from them, perfectly placed. Her voice just loud enough to make people laugh without ever sounding too loud. Robert stayed next to her like a stamp of approval. Derek scrolled on his phone and only spoke when Patricia looked at him. It looked like a happy family from far away. Balanced. Respectable. Easy. But I've lived too long to trust what people show strangers. Patricia didn't ask Maya how she felt. She asked how the seating chart was going. She didn't ask what kind of marriage they wanted. She talked about keeping things in line and starting off right. Her words kept landing in the same places. Order, structure, normal, family. Every sentence was like a small fence, and in the middle of that fence was my granddaughter, smiling bright and trying to be gracious. Patricia leaned forward at one point, her fork resting on her plate like she was pausing to share wisdom. Marriage is a joining, she said, smiling at the planner, then at Maya, then at me, like including me made it sweeter. Not just hearts, money, responsibilities, everything. People forget that. We don't forget that in this family. The way she said in this family made it sound like being a member came with duties. Like a young bride's independence was something to be softened down, mixed in, made useful. Maya laughed politely. Marcus nodded the way he always did when his mother spoke. Automatic. Trained. I watched him. Watched how his face stayed pleasant even when his eyes looked away. He didn't argue. He didn't interrupt. He let her lead everything. That told me all I needed to know. After the meal, while people stood around talking, Patricia drifted toward Maya with the gentle push of someone who'd already decided where she belonged. "Sweetheart," she said, touching Maya's arm lightly. "After the wedding we'll do a little family follow-up. Nothing serious. Just a quick meeting so we can make sure you two are protected." Protected. The word was soft, almost loving. It was also a weapon. Maya's shoulders lifted in a reflex, then relaxed. "A follow-up," she repeated, still smiling because that's what brides do when they don't want to seem ungrateful. Patricia nodded with warmth that didn't reach her eyes. "Just normal," she said. "It'll put your mind at ease. The first day after you get married, everything feels new and fast. It's better to get the simple stuff out of the way right away. Then you can just enjoy being married. Simple. Normal. Right away." The words clicked into place like stones I'd stepped on before. I didn't need to guess her plan anymore. Patricia believed marriage turned a woman's private life into public property. She believed the moment vows were spoken, family became a business meeting. I could hear it in the way she spoke about protection, like protection meant control and control meant rights. She wasn't waiting to see what Maya would offer. She was preparing to take what she thought was now within reach. And she thought it would be easy because she'd done it before. I saw it in the confidence. In the comfort she had talking about paperwork like it was tradition. The way Robert nodded like he'd watched it happen more than once. The way Derek smirked, bored like the ending was already known. Youth plus love makes people easy to push. Patricia was counting on that. She was counting on the softness that follows a wedding day. She was counting on my granddaughter wanting to keep peace more than wanting to keep power. Maya glanced at me across the room. Her smile still there, but her eyes asking for help without moving her lips. I held her gaze and gave her the smallest shake of my head. "Don't agree to anything, not even politely." Patricia noticed that look. Her smile got sharper for just a second, then softened again as she squeezed Maya's arm. "We'll call you," she said sweetly. "Just a quick family follow-up after the wedding." The wedding was beautiful in the way money and planning can make things beautiful. Clean lines, soft lights, music that moved like water. White flowers climbed the walls like they grew there naturally, and every chair was placed just right, all facing the altar like everyone was leaning in to see something holy. People smiled easy that day. The kind of smiles that come from thinking everything important has already been decided. Maya walked toward Marcus with calm grace that made my chest hurt. Her dress moved around her like it knew how hard she'd worked to get here. I watched her face, not for nerves but for doubt. There was none. Just trust. That's what love gives you on your wedding day. Soft place to stand. Patricia sat in the front row, hands folded, chin up, tears sitting perfectly in the corners of her eyes. She touched them gently like she was performing sadness for people who expected it. Robert leaned in and whispered something that made her smile without looking away from the aisle. Derek glanced around, already bored. Marcus waited at the front, hands together, back straight, looking like a man who'd been taught exactly where to stand and when to nod. When Patricia reached out to fix his tie before the ceremony started, he let her. He always let her. That's what hit me hardest. Not cruelty. Not force. Just permission. The ceremony went smoothly. Vows spoken clearly. Promises made with steady voices. Clapping followed like a wave. And for a moment even I felt pulled by it. The relief that comes when something you've been holding your breath for finally lands. Maya smiled at me as they turned to walk back down the aisle, her eyes shining. And I smiled back because I'm her grandmother and love doesn't disappear just because worry whispers warnings. The party after flowed the way these things always do. Laughter rose and fell. Glasses clicked together. People hugged Maya like she belonged to them now, like marriage had made her shared property. Patricia moved through the room easily, greeting guests, accepting compliments, narrating the family's happiness like a host who'd rehearsed her lines. She kept one hand on Marcus's arm whenever she passed him, anchoring him where she wanted him. He never pulled away. He never stepped ahead. When she spoke, he listened. When she laughed, he smiled. When she suggested something to the planner, he nodded without question. I watched all of it from the side of the room, the way women my age learn to watch quietly without asking for attention. At one point, Patricia walked toward the gift table, her purse tucked under her arm. It wasn't big, but it was stiff, heavier than it needed to be for lipstick and a phone. She set it down briefly to greet someone, and when she moved it, the top opened just enough for me to see inside. Not money. Not personal things. Paper. Thick, neatly stacked, edges straight. A folder pressed flat against the side. The corner was stiff and clear. My heart didn't race. Slowed. This is what calm looks like when you've been warned ahead of time. When you see a pattern instead of panicking. Patricia closed the bag quickly and kept smiling, but the weight of what I'd seen stayed with me. Across the room, Maya danced with Marcus, her head resting on his shoulder, his hand firm on her back. They looked happy. Really happy. That's the cruelest part of moments like this. Danger doesn't show up dressed like danger. It shows up wrapped in celebration. Later, when people started giving speeches, Patricia stood and lifted her glass. Her voice was warm and steady as she talked about family, about joining together, about how marriage connects not just two people but two families and two futures. The word futures hung in the air a second longer than it should have. Maya didn't notice. Marcus squeezed his mother's hand afterward, gratitude written all over his face. He didn't look toward me once. As the night ended, guests left with hugs and laughter, shoes in their hands, promises to call soon. The lights got dim. The music got softer. Maya hugged me tightly, whispering thank you into my shoulder. The smell of flowers and perfume stuck to her hair. Patricia watched us from across the room, her smile settled and satisfied. When the doors finally closed behind the last guest, the room felt suddenly too quiet, like a house after company leaves and the real talks begin. The morning after the wedding didn't feel like danger. It felt like leftovers and soft light and a quiet, tired feeling that sits behind your eyes after you've smiled for 12 hours. Maya and Marcus had stayed downtown in a hotel suite for the night. Patricia's gift, of course, arranged with the same smooth control she used for everything. But Maya came to my house early, still glowing like a newlywed, hair pulled into a messy knot, carrying her shoes in her hand like a girl again. She said she wanted breakfast with Grandma. Just something small before she went back to Marcus for the lunch his family had planned. That word kept showing up in my head like a light I couldn't turn off. Maya sat at my kitchen table, drinking tea, eyes half closed with exhaustion. She looked peaceful. That peace made my stomach hurt because peace is exactly what hunters borrow when they want you to drop your guard. I watched her rub the edge of her napkin, watched how she kept smiling even when her phone buzzed. Patricia again. Maya didn't answer. She let it ring and said, almost like an apology, she's excited. She was trying to be kind. Brides do that. They think if they stay sweet, everyone will stay sweet back. I set eggs and toast in front of her and sat across from her, careful with my movements. I didn't want to scare her. I wanted to prepare her. You remember what I said? I asked quietly. Maya's smile stayed but her eyes changed. One of those small shifts that means your body heard the warning even if your heart wants to ignore it. I remember, she whispered. I haven't said anything. Good, I said again. That word tasted like relief and worry at the same time because silence doesn't stop people from trying. Silence just makes them show their hand faster when they're in a hurry. I didn't have to guess why Patricia would move quickly. I'd watched women like her my whole life. They don't wait for permission when they think they have a right. And marriage gives people like that a fresh excuse to rush you. In their minds, the first day after vows is when everything is easiest. You're still tender, still floating, still trying to keep the new thing intact. You haven't had time to think. You haven't had time to ask anyone outside the family what something means. They count on that. They count on a bride's fear of looking suspicious. They count on a husband's fear of challenging his mother when the marriage license is still fresh. Maya pushed her plate away after a few bites, appetite fading the way it does when something in the air shifts. Marcus said his mom likes to handle details, she said, repeating it like a compliment, then pausing as if the words sounded different spoken out loud. She said she wants us to start off organized. Organized. I felt my jaw tighten just slightly. Starting off organized, I repeated, keeping my voice calm. The way you keep a knife behind your back. That's what she said. Maya nodded. She said she doesn't want anything to get confusing later. Confusing later. Another phrase that always shows up right before someone tells you to sign something fast. I leaned back in my chair and let my eyes settle somewhere past Maya's shoulder because I didn't want her to see too much in my face. The truth is I already knew the plan Patricia had, even if I didn't know the exact paper yet. People like Patricia don't come with lawyers first. Lawyers invite questions. Lawyers create trails that can be challenged. Lawyers make things official in a way that gives the other side time to breathe. Patricia didn't want breathing room. She wanted speed. She wanted pressure without debate. That's why she would bring a notary. A notary doesn't sit down to explain. A notary shows up, smiles politely, checks an ID, and waits for signatures. The presence alone makes people feel like the decision has already been made. Like refusing would be childish or rude. Like saying I need time would be embarrassing. A notary is quick authority, just enough to scare you into agreeing, not enough to invite conversation. I'd seen it before. People bring a notary the way they bring witnesses, to make you feel outnumbered, to make you feel like the room agrees with them, to make your worry look like troublemaking. And the first 24 to 72 hours after marriage is when that trick works best, because a bride is still trying to prove she belongs. Maya's fingers tightened around her teacup. "Grandma," she said softly, voice smaller than it had been yesterday. "You think she's going to bring paperwork?" I met her eyes then, steady and calm. "I think she's going to bring something that looks harmless," I said. "And I think she's going to rush you." Maya swallowed. And for the first time since she walked in, she didn't look like a bride. She looked like a granddaughter again. Young. Trusting. Trying to learn how to stand up without shaking. I reached across the table and covered her hand. "If anyone asks you to sign anything right now," I said slow and clear, "you don't sign. You don't explain. You don't argue. You just say you need time." She nodded, but her eyes were far away, like she could already feel the pressure coming. The kitchen clock ticked loud in the quiet. Outside, the hallway was still. Then, sharp and sudden, the doorbell rang. The second I opened my door, I knew it wasn't a neighbor. It wasn't a package. It wasn't even family stopping by to say congratulations the way people pretend to do when they want to feel close to joy. It was a lineup. Patricia stood in front like she owned the building, pearls catching the light, smile already locked in place. Robert was beside her, hands together, eyes calm. Derek leaned slightly back, phone in hand, watching like this was a show. Marcus stood near the edge of them, not quite in front, not quite behind, dressed casual now but still neat, like he'd been told what to wear to look reasonable. And next to them was a man I'd never seen before, holding a leather folder like it held something sacred. His back was straight. His face was blank. The kind of blank that pretends it's not part of the harm. Patricia's eyes slid past me, straight to Maya behind my shoulder, as if my body was just something in her way. "Good morning," she sang, warm and rehearsed. "We didn't want to bother you, but we were already in the area." Already in the area. People always say that when they don't want you to know they planned it. Maya stepped beside me, still holding her teacup like she'd forgotten to put it down. Her eyes went to the folder in the stranger's hands, then back to Patricia's smile. I felt her arm touch mine, the smallest shake in her skin. Patricia opened her hands. "Sweetheart, this will only take 5 minutes," she said. And the sweetness in her voice made my stomach tighten because it wasn't meant to comfort Maya. It was meant to calm the room. "This is just normal." The man cleared his throat, respectful. "Thomas R. Blake," he said, offering a small professional nod. "I'm a notary." His voice carried that familiar tone of someone official. Certain." Unbothered. Patricia turned slightly toward him as if presenting him like a prize. "We use Mr. Blake for family business," she said. "He's very dependable." Dependable. Another word that lands like a pillow over your face. Robert gave a slow nod. Silent agreement. Marcus didn't look at Maya. He looked at the wall across from my door like eye contact would make him responsible. Maya's fingers tightened around her cup. "What is this?" she asked quietly. Patricia laughed softly as if Maya had asked something cute. "Oh honey," she said, stepping forward. The smell of her perfume hit first. "Expensive. Clean. Too close. It's after marriage protection. Routine. Every family has their way of starting off right. We just like to make sure our children are covered," she said. "Our children." And I watched Maya's face do that small thing where a young woman warms at the idea of belonging. Patricia knew exactly where to push. The notary shifted his folder into his left arm and reached for a small notebook tucked under it. It wasn't big. It was casual, like he'd done this 1,000 times in kitchens and living rooms while people nodded and smiled through their own confusion. Patricia walked in without waiting for permission, heels clicking softly on my floor. Robert followed. Derek drifted in last. Marcus stepped over the line like he was stepping into a church. "Let's sit," Patricia said, already moving toward my dining table as if the house had always been hers to arrange. My table where Maya had eaten breakfast 20 minutes earlier suddenly looked like a business room. Patricia set a thick stack of papers down with confidence, smoothing the top page with her hand. The sound of paper on wood landed heavy in the silence. Maya stood at the edge of the room, cup still in her hand, blinking slowly like her body was trying to catch up to the moment. I didn't speak yet. I watched how Patricia placed the papers in front of Maya's chair, not mine. I watched how Robert stood at Patricia's shoulder like a witness. I watched how Derek leaned against the counter, mouth turning up at the corners. I watched Marcus hover near Maya's side but not close enough to protect her. Patricia's smile grew. "Now that the marriage is legal, we just need your signature acknowledging shared property and family beneficiaries." The sentence came out smooth like she'd practiced it in the mirror, like it wasn't a trap, just tradition. Maya's breath caught, small and quick. She set her cup down on the counter with shaking care and walked to the table because politeness is a chain and she'd been trained her whole life to wear it. Thomas Blake opened his folder and pulled out his stamp and a small ink pad, setting them down with neat care. The sight of that stamp made everything feel final in a way that didn't belong in a home. Patricia slid the top page forward, tapping the line with one nail. "Just here, sweetheart," she said softly, her voice dropping into something almost motherly. Then she reached into her purse, pulled out a pen like she'd brought it just for this moment, and placed it right in front of Maya. The pen sat there like bait. Ordinary. Pretending it wasn't sharp. Maya stared at it a moment too long and Patricia noticed. Patricia always noticed. She shifted her voice into something softer, almost loving, the way women do when they want to guide you without looking like they're pushing. "Sweetheart," she whispered, hand resting lightly on the paper as if she were reading it for Maya's benefit. "This is how grown people protect what they're building. It's not a big deal. Not a big deal. Those words are made to make you feel silly for hesitating." Robert added a quiet, fatherly tone without moving much. "Just protection," he said. "You two are starting a life. You'll thank us later." Derek laughed under his breath like the whole thing was obvious. "Everyone does this," he said, tapping his phone screen once and sliding it back into his pocket. It's normal. Normal. The word floated through my dining room like smoke. Maya's throat moved as she swallowed. She didn't reach for the pen. She didn't push it away either. She looked at Marcus, her husband now, waiting for his eyes to meet hers, waiting for him to say something that would let her breathe. Marcus's eyes flicked down to the paper and then away again, landing somewhere near the corner of the room as if the wall might save him from picking sides. His hands were together in front of him, fingers locked tight. His jaw working slowly like he was chewing something he couldn't swallow. Patricia glanced at him and he nodded. Automatic. That nod was louder than any words he could have said. Maya's shoulders lifted slightly, then dropped as if her body had just accepted a new truth without wanting to. Patricia grabbed that moment. She leaned forward with the gentle power of a woman used to being obeyed. Just paperwork, she said. You're not giving anything away. You're simply saying what marriage already means. She said already means like the meaning had been decided by someone older, someone wiser, someone who didn't need permission. Thomas Blake, the notary, cleared his throat lightly, professional and careful. Ma'am, he said to Maya, this is a simple signing. I'll just need to check your ID and see your signature. Simple. Another word meant to flatten your worries. Maya's eyes jumped to me for half a second, quick as a blink, then back to the paper. She was trying to stay calm. She was trying not to upset anyone. She was trying to be the good new wife Patricia kept praising her for being. That's why they were so sure. They were sure because they thought they understood her. They thought she would choose peace over power, even in her own home. They thought gratitude would trap her. They thought love would make her bendable. They thought her age meant she didn't know how to say no without apologizing. Patricia's smile grew, the warmth in it turning almost victorious. We're only doing this because we care, she said, as if care is proven by speed. And we're doing it now because it's better not to wait. When people wait, they get confused. They start listening to outsiders. Outsiders. She meant me without saying my name. Robert stepped closer, his shadow falling over the table like weight. No need to make this bigger than it is, he said gently, and the gentleness felt like a warning. Derek tilted his head toward Maya and added light and careless. Come on, don't be dramatic. This is normal. Normal. Another chain. Maya's lips opened. She looked like she wanted to speak but didn't know which sentence would keep everyone calm. Her fingers moved near the pen, shaking just slightly, the way a hand shakes when it's about to do something the mind hasn't agreed to yet. Marcus shifted his weight from one foot to the other, still silent, still absent in the one moment his presence mattered most. Patricia noticed Maya's pause and changed plans in a heartbeat, her voice turning sweet again. You're tired, she cooed. You've had a big week. Just sign, sweetheart. Then we'll go. You can rest. You don't want to start your marriage with problems. Problems. There it was. The threat wrapped in a song. Start your marriage with problems. As if refusing to sign something you don't understand is what creates problems. Not the people who showed up at your door with a notary and a stack of papers. Maya's hand moved an inch closer to the pen. Her breathing went shallow. Her eyes got wet, but she refused to let the tears fall. She was trying so hard to be good. Patricia watched that effort like a wolf watches an injured deer. The room held its breath. The only sound was the faint scrape of Thomas's folder moving as he got ready to witness the signature. And that's when I felt something settle inside me. Quiet. Heavy. Final. I stepped forward, close enough that Maya could feel me there without me touching her. And I spoke for the first time. My voice didn't rise. It didn't shake. It came out low, and even the way a woman speaks when she's done being impressed by polite faces. Before she signs anything, I said, I need one thing made clear. Patricia's smile stayed on her face, but her eyes got narrow for a second, quick as a blink. She turned toward me as if I had just stepped into traffic in front of her. Marlowe, she said softly, warning wrapped in silk. This really isn't needed. I didn't answer her yet. I looked past her, past Robert's calm stance, past Derek's smirk, past Marcus's silence, and I locked my eyes on Thomas Blake. A notary's power isn't loud, but it's real. It's the power of being the person everyone pretends is neutral. Neutral people become dangerous when they're used as furniture in somebody else's plan. Mr. Blake, I said, respectful but firm. Which account are you talking about? The question landed heavy because it didn't match the script they'd brought into my home. Patricia blinked once, slow, her smile tightening as if she were deciding whether to laugh at me or crush me. Robert shifted his stance slightly. Derek's smirk dropped and then came back forced. Marcus's eyes flicked to me, startled, then dropped again. Thomas hesitated only a beat, the way professionals do when they realize a room is changing. Ma'am, he said, still polite. The documents reference the Wilson family account. He said it confidently, like reading a label, like naming something makes it yours. Maya's breath caught. Her head turned toward me slowly, eyes wide. And in that wide look I saw fear and hope fighting for space. Patricia's chin lifted. Exactly, she said, a touch sharper now. We're simply making sure everything is recognized properly. This is all very normal. Normal. She tried to push the room back into the familiar path, tried to make my question feel like trouble. I didn't give her that. I kept my eyes on Thomas because the truth was not in Patricia's mouth. It was in the paperwork. Thank you, I said to him. Then I turned my eyes to Patricia. That account ended yesterday. The air changed instantly. Not in a big way. No one screamed. No one dropped a glass. It was more subtle than that. More human. Derek's eyebrows lifted before he could control his face. Robert's nose flared slightly, the smallest flash of anger. Marcus's lips opened as if he was about to speak, but no sound came out. Patricia froze for half a second, and in that half second her smile became something else. Too tight. Too thin. Like a mask pulled over a crack. That's not, she started, then stopped, recalculating. Marlo, you don't understand what you're saying. Her voice got sharper at the edges, just enough to try to put me back in my place. I didn't take the bait. I didn't argue. I let my calm do the talking. I understand exactly, I said, and my words landed with the quiet certainty of someone who's been ready for this moment long before the doorbell rang. Maya's chair scraped softly as she moved back from the table like the paper might bite her. Thomas's eyes moved to the first page again. Patricia noticed and leaned forward quickly, her hand pressing down on the stack as if she could hold reality in place with her palm. Mr. Blake, she said, voice sweetening again in a hurry. It's fine. Everything is correct. We've done this before. Done this before. There it was, her truth slipping out. Thomas didn't respond to that. He picked up the top page, then the second, his thumb moving along the edges with practiced care. He wasn't judging the family. He was judging his own risk. I watched him closely because the moment a neutral man starts feeling danger, the whole room loses its certainty. Ma'am, he said slowly, looking up at me. Can you explain what you mean by ended? Patricia's head snapped toward him, eyes flashing. I answered calmly. Not for Patricia. Not for Robert. Not for Derek. Not even for Marcus. I answered for Maya, who needed to hear that her fear had a reason and her silence had been protection. I mean, the documents you're holding are tied to something that doesn't exist anymore, I said. And if you move forward without checking, you put your stamp on the wrong thing. Patricia breathed in sharply through her nose, the sound controlled and furious. Robert's hand moved to her elbow, steadying her, reminding her to stay calm. Derek's phone was forgotten in his pocket now. Marcus stared at the papers like they were suddenly written in a language he couldn't pretend not to see. Thomas lowered his eyes again, flipping to the part with headings and names, scanning the lines more carefully now. The room had lost its smoothness. The confidence that walked in with them was slipping page by page, right there on my dining table. Thomas's forehead wrinkled slightly. He turned back to the first page, then to the second again, slower this time, and started to reread. The room stayed quiet while Thomas Blake reread the pages, the silence thick enough to feel like pressure on my ears. He didn't rush this time. He slowed down, the way people do when they realize their first confidence might cost them later. His finger traced a line, then stopped. He flipped a page back, then forward again. The sound of paper turning felt louder than it should have, like it was bouncing off everyone's nerves. Patricia shifted beside the table, her heel tapping once before she caught herself. Robert leaned in slightly, trying to read over Thomas's shoulder without looking like he was trying. Derek crossed his arms, the smirk gone now, replaced by impatience. Marcus stood frozen, eyes fixed on the folder like it might explain something he hadn't bothered to understand before today. Maya hadn't moved at all. She stood with her hands together in front of her, knuckles white, breathing shallow but steady. She was listening. That mattered. Thomas cleared his throat. "There's a part here," he said carefully, tapping the page, "that talks about a replacement structure started upon marriage." Patricia's lips opened then pressed together again. "Yes," she said quickly. "That's normal." She leaned forward too fast. "Just means things are updated." Thomas didn't look at her. He kept reading. "It appears," he continued, voice still professional but no longer casual, "that upon marriage, the original account ends and a new account takes over." Maya's head tilted slightly as if her body understood before her mind did. I watched Patricia's shoulders tighten under her jacket. "Ends," Robert repeated, quiet but sharp. Thomas nodded once. "That's the language used here." He glanced up briefly, then back down. "The new account is more limited." Limited. That word landed hard. Patricia let out a small laugh that sounded wrong in the room. "Limited how?" she asked, sweetness strained. Thomas turned another page. "It clearly limits who gets money." He paused, reading silently for a moment longer than necessary. The delay was on purpose. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. "Spouses are excluded. In-laws are excluded." The air left Patricia's chest in a controlled breath she didn't mean to make. Robert straightened fully now, anger creeping into his stance. Derek's arms dropped to his sides. Marcus finally looked at Maya, his face pale, confusion written all over him. Maya didn't look back. She was staring at Thomas, taking in each word like it was holding her down. Patricia tried to recover. "That can't be right," she said firmly. "We were told." She stopped herself, eyes flicking to me, then back to Thomas. "This is just a confirmation. No one is taking anything." Thomas adjusted his glasses. "There's also a part about force," he said, quieter now. The room leaned in without meaning to. "It says that any attempt to push, pressure, or rush the owner into changing, confirming, or giving up rights causes an immediate loss of any future claims." Maya breathed in sharply, a sound caught between shock and relief. Marcus took a half step toward her, then stopped as if unsure whether he was allowed to cross that space anymore. Patricia's face got hard. "Loss," she repeated, the words scraping her throat. Thomas nodded again. "Yes, ma'am." He looked up fully now, meeting her eyes for the first time. "Which means that moving forward without proper checking could put all people involved at risk." He didn't say trouble. He didn't need to. The room felt suddenly smaller, the walls closer, the table heavier with paper that no longer belonged to Patricia's confidence. I watched her carefully. This was the moment people show who they are when politeness stops working. Her smile didn't come back. Instead, she pressed her lips together and looked at Maya, her eyes sharp, searching for weakness. "You knew about this," she said, blame thinly hidden. Maya didn't answer her. She didn't have to. The truth was sitting right there in black ink. Robert said something under his breath. Derek stepped back toward the door, body already distancing itself from whatever this had become. Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it again, finally understanding that silence had been a choice and choices have results. Thomas stacked the pages neatly, lining up the corners with careful attention. He slid the pen back toward his folder instead of toward Maya. Then, with a calm that carried finality, he closed the folder and clicked it shut. Thomas Blake didn't slam the folder. He didn't stand up in anger. He didn't raise his voice or blame anyone for anything. He simply closed his work the way a man closes a door when he smells smoke. Quietly, carefully, completely. That was the moment Patricia's control started to slip because she had built her whole entrance on the idea that he would be a tool. Neutral. Silent. Obedient. Stamp with a pulse. But neutrality has limits when it starts to feel expensive. Thomas slid the folder toward himself and started packing his ink pad and stamp with slow care. The movement was small, but it changed the room's feel. Maya's shoulders loosened a little, like her body had been waiting for a hit and realized it might not land. Marcus's face tightened, his eyes moving between his mother and the notary as if he was watching the ground move under his feet. Robert leaned forward, voice low, trying to get back the tone of a man who runs things. "Now hold on," he said. "We're not asking you to do anything wrong. This is family paperwork." Family paperwork. The phrase sounded ridiculous now, floating over a loss clause like a paper boat on deep water. Thomas lifted his eyes, polite but firm. "Sir, I'm not here to judge intent," he said. "I'm here to witness signatures under proper circumstances." Proper circumstances. Patricia's smile tried to return and failed. She stepped closer to the table, hand hovering over the papers like she might physically stop the situation from moving. "Mr. Blake," she said, voice smoothing itself in a hurry. "I don't understand why you're making this hard. We do this all the time. You've stamped documents for us before." The edge of her panic showed in that last sentence. "Before you were useful. Before you didn't question. Before you played your role." Thomas didn't react to her tone. He only glanced down at the page again, then up at Maya, then back to Patricia. His choice wasn't emotional. It was practical. "Ma'am," he said, "the document talks about an account structure that appears to have changed, and there is language here about force and loss. If I witness signatures under pressure, I put myself at risk." Risk. That was the real truth. Not morals. Not loyalty. Risk. Patricia's nose flared, her face tightening as she tried to keep her anger from showing. "Pressure," she repeated with a laugh that didn't sound like laughter. "No one is pressuring her." Derek made a short sound in his throat, a dismissive noise meant to signal agreement, but he didn't step forward. He didn't back her up with anything real. Robert's jaw worked slowly. Marcus still said nothing. Maya looked down at the pen, then up at me, then back to Thomas. Her eyes were clear now. The softness that had made her easy to corner was disappearing in real time. Patricia saw that and her voice got sharp. "Maya," she said, using my granddaughter's name like a hook. "This is a simple process. Sign the confirmation and we're done. You don't want to start your marriage with suspicion." Suspicion. The word slid out like blame, like the problem was Maya's gut feeling, not Patricia's attack. Maya's lips opened, then closed again. She didn't defend herself. She didn't apologize. She held her silence in a way that looked new on her. Heavy. On purpose. That silence rattled Patricia more than any argument could have. Thomas finished packing his stamp and placed it back into his folder. He stood then, pushing his chair back gently. The chair legs scraped the floor, a sound that cut through the room like a signal. "I'm going to have to step back from this signing," he said. His tone stayed professional but final. "I cannot move forward unless I have proof that the account structure and beneficiary terms are current and that all people are signing freely without force." Patricia's composure cracked. It wasn't big, but it was visible. The way her shoulders tensed. The way her mouth tightened. The way the warmth in her face drained into something colder. "So you're just leaving?" she demanded. And the demand showed what the sweetness had been hiding. She wasn't requesting anything. She was expecting obedience. Robert stepped forward, trying to manage his wife's tone with his presence. "Mr. Blake," he said. "We hired you." Thomas nodded slightly. "And I'm choosing not to complete this work under these circumstances," he replied. "I'll return any fee already paid." That last line landed like a slap because it wasn't just refusal. It was rejection. He was refusing their power. Patricia's eyes flashed. She turned sharply toward Marcus. "Say something," she hissed, too low for a stranger to catch but too sharp for a wife not to feel. Marcus's throat moved. He looked at Maya like he wanted her to save him. Maya didn't move. She just stood there, quiet, watching the man who'd been brought to force her hand choose himself instead. Patricia turned back to Thomas, her voice rising, the politeness finally falling off. "What does this mean for us?" Patricia's question hung in the air like a beg for mercy. But Thomas Blake didn't give her comfort. He gave her limits. "It means I'm not moving forward," he said, calm as a closed gate. "If you have questions about what the document means for you, you'll need to talk with a lawyer." He didn't say attorney. He didn't have to. The word lawyer landed like a cold cloth on a fever. Patricia's mouth opened, then shut. Robert's hand tightened around the back of a chair. Derek shifted again toward the doorway, as if his body knew the safest place in a falling room is near an exit. Marcus looked like a man waking up inside a mess he didn't build but didn't stop. Maya stood very still, eyes fixed on Patricia now, studying her the way you study an animal that has just shown its teeth. Thomas picked up his folder and stepped back toward the door. He nodded once at Maya, then at me. Not support. Professional courtesy. But it felt like protection anyway because he was leaving with his stamp. And without that stamp, Patricia's little show didn't have teeth. Patricia followed him 2 steps, anger and panic fighting in her body. "You can't just walk out," she snapped, then softened quickly, voice slipping back into sweetness like she was pulling on a coat. "Mr. Blake, please. We're just trying to protect them." Thomas didn't stop. He opened my front door and stepped into the hallway. The click of the lock as it closed behind him was quiet, but it cut the room in half. For a heartbeat, no one spoke. Patricia turned slowly, the way people turn when they're about to pretend nothing happened. Her smile tried to come back. It couldn't find its place. "Well," she said, forcing a light tone that didn't match her eyes. "That was inconvenient." Robert gave a short laugh, sharp and humorless. Derek muttered, "Waste of time." As if time was the only thing they'd risked. Marcus stepped toward Maya at last, reaching for her hand like a man trying to fix normal. Maya didn't take it. The rejection was so simple it made my throat tighten. Marcus's hand hung in the air for a second too long before he let it drop. Patricia's eyes cut to Maya. "Sweetheart," she said, voice turning sweet again. "Don't let that man's nervousness scare you. We can finish this later." Still the right thing to do. Later. That word was supposed to calm. It only proved what I already knew. She wasn't done. She had simply lost the tool she'd brought to force agreement. I watched Maya's face. The softness was gone now. In its place was something new. Quiet thinking. The first layer of steel that forms when a woman realizes she's been handled. Maya walked to the table and picked up the stack of papers with both hands. Patricia's eyes went wide. "Careful," she said quickly. "Those are important." Maya didn't look at her. She flipped to the part Thomas had been reading, scanning with the focus of someone who suddenly understands that words can be weapons. Her lips moved silently as she read. Then she turned the pages again, quicker now, and stopped at a paragraph that made her eyebrows lift. I saw her breath catch. Not panic. Understanding. The kind of understanding that makes you realize this wasn't a mistake. It was a plan. Maya set the papers down slowly as if they were dirty. "You came here," she said, voice low, controlled. "The day after my wedding." Patricia lifted her chin, trying to get back power. "Yes," she replied quickly. "Because it's responsible." Maya's eyes didn't move. "You brought a notary." Patricia's smile flickered. "Yes," she said again, slower, as if she could still frame it as kindness. Maya's voice stayed quiet, but the room leaned toward it anyway. "And you did all of that without telling me ahead of time." Marcus finally spoke, a weak attempt to fix the moment. "Babe, it's just paperwork." "My mom." "Stop," Maya cut in, and the word landed hard because it wasn't shouted. Marcus froze. I watched him shrink a little, startled by her tone. Patricia's eyes flashed at Marcus like, "How dare you let her speak to you like that?" Maya turned her eyes to him. And when she spoke again, her voice shook just slightly. Not from fear but from a sadness she hadn't expected to feel this soon. "You stood there," she said, "and you let them corner me." Marcus's mouth opened. Nothing came out. My granddaughter reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. She didn't call anyone. She didn't announce anything. She simply unlocked it and stared at the screen for a long second, thumb hovering. Patricia's body stiffened, her gut sensing danger. "What are you doing?" she demanded. Maya looked up at me then. Not at Patricia. Not at Robert. Not at Derek. And definitely not at her husband. Her eyes were wet but clear. "Grandma," she whispered, voice breaking in one small place. "What if I married into the wrong family?" I didn't answer Maya in front of them. Not Patricia with her tight mouth and hungry eyes. Not Robert standing stiff like a man who didn't know whether to threaten or run. Not Derek hovering near my doorway like a boy caught stealing. Not Marcus, pale and silent, looking at his wife like he just realized she was a person and not a role. In front of people like that, words become tools. They twist. So I moved my body instead. I stepped between Maya and that table, picked up the stack of papers with 2 fingers like something diseased, and slid them back toward Patricia without ceremony. Then I nodded toward my hallway. "Maya," I said quietly, "come with me." My granddaughter hesitated only a second. That second told me she was already changing. She followed me down the hall, past framed photos of her as a little girl, past the small mark on the wall she made with her bike handle years ago, past all the proof that our life existed before the Monroes decided it was theirs to organize. I closed my bedroom door behind us and leaned my back against it, keeping my voice low even though we were alone. Maya stood in the middle of the room like she didn't know where to put her hands. She took one breath, then another, and the tears that had been waiting in her eyes finally slid down. She wiped them fast, angry with herself for crying, angry with the timing, angry that her wedding glow had been replaced by this. "I felt stupid," she whispered, voice raw. "I felt like I was being tested." I shook my head once, slow. "You were being measured," I said. "They came to see how easily you fold." Maya's chest rose and fell quickly. She pressed her hands together, fingers locked so tight her knuckles looked white. "Marcus didn't say anything," she said, and the hurt in her voice was sharper than any insult. "He just stood there and watched me. I didn't defend him. I didn't blame him. I let the truth sit where it belonged." "People show you who they are when their comfort is threatened," I said softly. Maya's eyes closed briefly like she was replaying the moment. "Pen. The paper." Patricia's voice telling her problems were the issue. When she opened her eyes again they were clearer, still wet but focused. "Grandma," she said, swallowing hard. If I had told her, if I had mentioned the money just once, would she have come differently? That was the question underneath everything. Not just what happened today. The shape of what could have happened. The danger she avoided without knowing the full size of it. I walked to my dresser and pulled open the bottom drawer where I keep things I don't want lying around. I didn't pull out documents. I didn't pull out numbers. I pulled out something simpler. An old envelope, thick with copies and notes from the time Patricia tried to help years ago. Maya watched it like it was a snake. "This is why I warned you," I said, setting it on the bed between us. "Because people like her don't wait for permission once they have information. They don't need your agreement when they think the situation gives them rights." Maya stared at the envelope, breathing slowly now, like her body was trying to settle into a new reality. "So if I told her," she whispered again, the words cracking at the end. I stepped closer, close enough that she could see I wasn't guessing. I wasn't making it bigger. I wasn't trying to scare her for control. I was trying to tell her the truth with the tenderness it deserved. "You wouldn't be sitting here," I said. I let the sentence hang, not as a threat but as a fact. Maya's lips opened, her eyes getting wider slightly, as if a door in her mind had opened and she could see through it now. Pressure. Control framed as love. Her husband caught between loyalty and convenience. Her being told to do the right thing until she couldn't tell right from surrender. Her shoulders dropped, not in defeat but in sadness. "They would have swallowed me," she whispered. He nodded. "They would have tried," I said. "And they would have used your kindness to do it." Maya sat down on the edge of my bed, hands shaking. "I don't know what to do now," she said. And there it was. The real fear. Not the money. Not the papers. The marriage. The picture she had painted in her mind that now had cracks running through it. I married him yesterday, she whispered. And today his mother came to my grandmother's house with a notary. She said it like she couldn't believe she was repeating her own life. I sat beside her, not touching her yet, letting her sit inside the truth long enough to own it. You don't have to decide out of panic, I said. But you do have to decide. Maya's jaw tightened. She wiped her cheeks again, slower this time, and when she lifted her head there was something hard in her eyes that hadn't been there before. I need to go back out there, she said, voice steadier. And I need to say something. When we walked back into the living room, nothing looked the same even though every object was still in its place. Patricia stood near my dining table with her purse held tight under her arm. The papers stacked in front of her like a claim she was refusing to release. Robert hovered close, jaw set. Derek had shifted fully toward the door, half turned, ready to leave and pretend he'd never been here. Marcus stood between them and Maya, but not like a shield. More like a man caught in the middle of two worlds, unsure which one would keep him safe. Maya stepped past me without hesitation. Her shoulders squared. Her face still damp from tears but her eyes clear and steady. She didn't look at the papers first. She looked at her husband. Marcus, she said quietly. Not angry. Not begging. Just calling him into the moment he'd tried to avoid. Marcus swallowed. Babe, he started. But his voice fell apart halfway through because there was nothing soft enough to fix what he'd allowed. Patricia cut in fast, her calm snapping back into place like a trained act. Sweetheart, she said. We don't have to do this here. You're emotional. We'll talk later. Maya lifted her hand, palm out, a small move that stopped Patricia mid-sentence. The silence that followed was loud. Patricia stared at her, offended in a way only entitled people get offended, that someone younger had dared to set a limit. Maya didn't flinch. No, she said simply. You came to Grandma's home. You brought a notary to her dining table. So we're finishing this here. Robert shifted, voice low in warning. Now listen. Maya turned her eyes to him, calm and unafraid. I am listening, she said. That's the problem. Listen. Derek scoffed once, trying to lighten it. This is being blown out of control. Maya didn't even look at him. You were ready to watch me sign something I hadn't read, she replied, still calm. So don't talk to me about control. Marcus's face tightened, shame creeping up his neck. He stepped forward slightly, finally trying. Babe, my mom thought. She didn't think, Maya cut in, and this time her voice sharpened just enough to draw blood. He planned. Patricia's smile came back, small and cold. You're accusing me of protecting you, she asked. The words smooth but the tone cruel. Maya nodded once. Yes, she said. Because protection doesn't show up without warning with a notary. That sentence landed like a door slamming in Patricia's face. Robert's lips pressed together. Derek's eyes jumped, searching for an exit that didn't look like running. Marcus's shoulders dropped as if he was finally feeling the weight of what silence costs. Patricia leaned forward, voice lowering into something sharper, less polished. You're a Monroe now, she said, as if the name itself was a chain. You don't get to treat this family like strangers. Maya's eyes didn't move. I'm not treating you like strangers, she replied. I'm treating you like people who showed me who they are. Patricia's eyes flashed. So what? You're going to embarrass your husband on day one. Maya's chin lifted. You embarrassed him when you trained him to stand silent, she said. And Marcus flinched like she'd hit him without raising a hand. I watched my granddaughter in that moment and felt something inside me settle. A quiet final relief. Not because she was winning a fight. Because she was choosing herself. Maya reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. Patricia stiffened instantly. Put that away, she snapped. This is private. Maya didn't press record. She didn't call the police. She didn't do anything big. She simply opened her messages and typed one sentence with steady hands, then turned the screen toward Patricia so she could see she wasn't bluffing. I've contacted Susan Cole, Maya said quietly. The trustee will be told about today's attempt. Robert's face went hard. Derek swore under his breath. Marcus stared at the phone like it was a weapon. Patricia's calm cracked again, not into panic this time but into something colder. Calculation. You wouldn't, she said, voice low. You'll hurt your own husband. Maya's eyes held hers. You already tried to, she replied. Then she stepped closer to the table, picked up the stack of papers, and slid them toward Patricia with 2 fingers. Take your normal stuff and leave, she said. You don't get another visit. Patricia's breath shook once, controlled. She grabbed the papers, shoved them into her bag, and turned toward Marcus. Come, she ordered. Marcus hesitated. For the first time he didn't move instantly. His eyes met Maya's, begging. Maya didn't soften. She didn't harden either. She just stood there, waiting for him to choose. Marcus swallowed, then stepped backward, not toward his mother but toward the door. I need time, he said, voice small. Patricia's head snapped toward him. Time, she hissed. After everything we've done. Marcus's shoulders stiffened. I saw what you did, he said, barely heard. Robert's eyes went wide. Derek looked away. Patricia's face twisted with rage she couldn't fully show in my home. She spun toward the door, Robert and Derek following, and left without another word. The door closed behind them softly, but the quiet that followed was different now. It wasn't practiced. It was earned. Maya breathed out slowly like she'd been holding her breath since the wedding. Marcus stood near the doorway, hands shaking slightly, looking at the floor as if he was finally seeing the mess he'd helped create. I didn't gloat. I didn't lecture. I walked to my small cabinet, opened it, and placed the old envelope back inside. Copies. The notes. The warnings written in my own hand. Then I turned the key, locked it, and closed the cabinet door gently. Maya watched me do it, and in her eyes I saw the understanding settle. Silence didn't just save money. Silence saved her. I crossed the room and took her hand at last, squeezing once. No speech. No celebration. Just a quiet promise between 2 women who had learned the same lesson in different generations. The legacy survived because we didn't hand it out with smiles. It survived because we kept it sealed until we knew who deserved to stand near it. I walked to the front door, turned the lock, and let the latch fall into place with a soft final click.